Tayyib. Question comes from the Bronx. Is an error in manhaj an error in aqidah, and does it remove a person from salafiyah? First and foremost is we have to understand the terminologies that are being used. Regardless whether the terminologies are right or wrong, correct or incorrect, but just understand the wording. What is meant by the word manhaj or minhaj? And many people I know for sure as a fact, they don't know what they say. And they are just parrots and tape recorders repeating information. They don't know what it is. And the proof is when you sit down and ask them to explain themselves, they can't. And they'll get angry and they'll get mad and they'll start abusing you and calling you names because they don't know what they're saying. What's meant by the word manhaj or minhaj? Manhaj is general methodology. Methodology in what? Here's a problem in manhaj. Manhaj in what? Manhaj of me making my tea. I use this type of tea bag. I use loose leaf. My manhaj in my dress. I like to wear this. I like to have that. My manhaj of speaking. My way. So we're talking about manhaj of Ahlus Sunnah. You have to define what you're talking about. How Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, how they deal with the nusus, the text. Manhaj al-talaqi. Khabar ahad, mashhur, mutawatir. Do we differentiate between the types of hadiths? Or do we take all of them as long as they're what? Authentic. That's a manhaj of taking the text. The manhaj of Ahlus Sunnah with regards to dealing with rulers is a Muslim ruler who's sinful. Do we revolt against him? Do we remove him? Do we curse him? Do we advise him? Do we make enjoying the good forbid evil? We have a way, a methodology. The methodology of Ahlus Sunnah in calling to Allah is that they use every opportunity. They use messages. They use this. They write letters, etc. The manhaj of Ahlus Sunnah, the manhaj of Islam in raising children. So people, they just use the word too vaguely and too general. Manhaj. Manhaj in what? Manhaj fi da'wah, manhaj fi ta'amul ma'al mukhalif, manhaj fi al-amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar, etc. All right? So people, they just broad brush and they use these terms incorrectly and unscientifically. So what do you mean by manhaj? All right? That's first and foremost. Secondly is manhaj is going to be the bigger or larger circle. And included in that circle is the circle of aqidah. And Islam is a total way of life and death. What we believe in, what we do, how we behave, how we lead, how we are led, etc. That's a general concept. And included in that is al-aqidah and tawheed and iman. So sometimes one is larger than the other, and sometimes it could be synonymous. It depends on what you mean and how you use it. Everyone understand this or not? As far as when does a person leave the sunnah, when does a person leave the circle of Ahlul Sunnah, Ahlul Hadith, then obviously this has become a very hot topic today for clear reason. And we say to keep things brief and to keep things simple. If a person clearly opposes a principle upon which there is consensus, a principle that's backed by the text and the evidence, and they do this obstinately, not that he thinks he's doing the right thing, he has a proof, he may be mistaken, he may be right, but he just wants to go against it. I don't care, I'm doing it anyway. And the proof and the evidence is given to him, supplied to him, and the advice is given, and the person continues and persists upon that, then that's a scenario. That's a what? A scenario, and I don't think, and Allah knows best, it's my humble opinion, I don't think there is a brother from among the people who have been refuted and warned against who wants to do that. I don't think so. Someone who graduated from Medina University, who studied, who learned this, who did this, who taught this, who translated this, who just wants to just go against a principle of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah obstinately and stubbornly. I don't think so. Someone who has a different background, that was never upon the way of the Sunnah, different story. Someone that has left it a long time ago and says, I'm no longer like this. I don't no longer believe in this. That's a what? That's a different story. But someone who's teaching the books of the ulama of Islam, who's calling to the Sunnah to practice the deen, teaching and speaking the layman 9 to 5 Muslims, I don't think they want to just what? Go against the usul of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah intentionally. And if it's something that was that clear and that obvious, for someone to just be evil and just want to go against it, I don't think that exists. But so often. All right, and I'm not denying the fact that people can go astray, and the law guides whom He wills and misleads whom He wills. We say that every single Friday. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. That's not a ليس محل إشكال. That's not a problem. But we're talking about the sick culture of a graduate of the Islamic University of Medina not being friends with a person, or disagreeing with a scholar, or saying something controversial, or saying actually a mistake. And then someone who didn't study, who didn't graduate, who's jealous, who's envious, and who's a competitor for status and authority says, oh, he made a mistake. And he said this in a lecture, and we got this point, and we wrote this PDF, and we called Sheikh Fulan on the phone, and then he's an innovator. And we've given him advice. That's the nonsense and the garbage that I'm talking about. And which everyone knows this brother's pedigree. Everyone knows Fulan and where he studied. And what he taught in the books and the dawah that he gave for 10 and 20 years. Everyone knows that. And then an issue came up. He had a problem with a brother, or he's going to expose these sinful fusak, wannabe fake imposter students of knowledge. And then they threatened him, if you don't keep silent about our sins and our orgies and our parties and our haram stuff that we do, in the name of Salafiyah, we're going to warn against you. And we will create mistakes that you've made. Everyone understand this? That's what I'm talking about. And the hypocrisy that has been going on for the 25 and 30 years in the past. In which a person calls a person a Hizbi. How dare you call someone a Hizbi? A partisan. If you looked up in a Webster's dictionary, you would find your face under partisan. Only study with us. Only go to these masjids. Only learn from these sheikhs. Only talk to these brothers. Don't give salams to these brothers. Only buy books from these brothers. What is that? Anta Hizbi. You're the Hizbi. And the people with you, they're upon Hizbiyah. And the people who refuse it and say, I'm not getting on my knees, and I'm not worshiping nobody. And I'm not throwing away the brain that I have for any sheikh or scholar or any person in the UK or in America. I don't care who you are. I don't believe that I made a mistake. Nor do I believe it's haram to say this. And I don't agree with Sheikh Fulan saying this person is an innovator. If that's being a Hizbi, then so be it. But in actuality, you're the partisan. You're the one who's in a clique, in a gang, in a group. And you're the one who says, don't go to no other masjids. Don't go to no other speakers. No one has any good or virtue except for what? Us. And we have the right to refute and to clarify mistakes and errors of everyone. But the moment a person throws a tiny pebble at our window, we cry and we pour out tears. And don't take this from me, brothers. It's not extremism. This is reality. Look on the internet. They refute, they criticize. Let you refute one brother. The first thing they say, he's attacking the Salafis. He's refuting the Salafis. He doesn't talk about Ahlul Bidah. But you refute, you criticize all day and all night. So who's actually the partisan? Who's the Hizbi? And who's really following the Salaf? Was the Salaf, was this way of taqleed and ta'assub? Blind following and fanaticism and marching behind a scholar and then discarding and throwing away the scholar and jumping on another bandwagon of another scholar? Is that the way of the Salaf? I don't think so. And I don't think anyone in common sense and two open eyes and sincere heart would agree with that. That that's the way of the Salaf Salih. So it depends on what you mean by going against and making a mistake in manhaj going outside of Salafiyah. The Salafiyah that these people call and the game that they play and the nonsense and the havoc that they cause, that is not the way of the Salaf. And if saying this and speaking out against this, if that gets me refuted or warned against, or someone who's my friend doesn't want to speak to me no more, then what? So be it. We could care less. Wallahi, we won't lose any sleep. If that is what we have to do to speak what we believe is the truth. And if we're mistaken, and if we're wrong in this, we will certainly stand in front of Allah. Just like what? You will stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu alam.